attempts to close or possible loopholes that could compromise the credibility of examinations.
Speaking during the opening and distribution of examinations material at Kisumu Central Sub-County container, Professor Nyambundi reaffirmed NEC's commitment to upholding the highest standards of integrity.
Well, there is only one big news here today. That is that we are having the grade 9 examination for the first time. That is KJSEA. That is the biggest news. The rest, since we started with KJSEA, we had introduced various changes in the way we do examinations. These exams are meant to be less stressful to the candidates. These are actually assessments. We are trying to get out of the terminology of examinations. We are getting to move to the level of assessments. And what we are doing here today, will still benefit from KJSEA, which they already did. They still benefit from what they have done, even in grade 3, grade 4, coming up, and it will add up even when they come to do the final exam in grade 12. So, as you can see, we have few security officers here today. We are trying to reduce the amount of security presence in examination centers. Over and above that, from what we did last year and which we are continuing, we have put all the, we have enhanced the security in terms of the way we present examinations. Each examination is coming in packed for every school. Each examination paper has the photographs. Each examination paper after the end of the examination is cut off so that what is marked finally is an anonymous document, so that the markers are not in any way disadvantaged or biased in how they grade the examinations. I think those are possibly some of the new things, not so new, that we are trying to do here. I think the newest thing here today is that we are doing grade 9 examination for any breach of integrity examinations have been done outside NEC. Now we have been trying to manage some of these things which are done outside NEC. And you are aware that last year, for example, for KCSE, we introduced picking the examination twice. So that we are picking what is done in the afternoon is picked in the afternoon. What is done in the morning is picked in the morning. That was an important measure because so that we limit the time for pre-examination exposure. That is pre-exposure of the papers before the exam time. Otherwise, at NEC, we are always committed to and do everything to ensure the integrity examinations.
Now let's talk about a place closer to us. The 2025 national exams for the primary and junior secondary schools officially commenced across the country, with more than 2.4 million candidates sitting for the test this year.
At Arambe Junior Secondary School in Buruburu, Makadara constituency, learners began their exams in a calm and orderly manner, with supervisors and teachers ensuring the process ran smoothly and on a schedule. Now, the exam supervisor at the school confirmed that the exercise started early as planned, with no logistical or time-related challenges reported. We further noted that all essential materials and resources were in place to facilitate a seamless examination process, and our reporter Lisa Mutinda files the story.
The national examination for primary and junior secondary schools have officially begun across the country, with a total of 2.4 million candidates expected to sit for the test this year. Candidates from Harambe Junior Secondary School in Buruburu, Makadara constituency, were seen taking their exams calmly. The environment remained peaceful, with exam supervisors and the teachers working together to ensure the exercise proceeds smoothly and on time. The exam supervisor at the school confirmed that the exam started as planned and that there were no time-related challenges. He added that all the necessary resources required to ensure the smooth running of exams were adequately provided.
Thank you very much. My name is Kiprono Gilbert. We are here at Arambe, sent on behalf of the Kenya National Examination Council. I'm here with Madam Jane, who is also a supervisor standing in for KJSEA, as I stand in for the Kenya Junior Secondary examination assessment, KJSEA that is. What I can say is that we have started exams very well. We have had no issue. We started as the right time, that is by 8:30, and we've completed the paper. That's about 1 hour 40 minutes for the Kenya Junior Secondary Examination. And for KPSEA, they were doing it for 1 hour 20 minutes. We have had no challenge. The learners were very ready. They were very calm. I can say generally the paper has gone so well.
Again, I would love to know the number of students who are sitting for the both papers as per now in this institution.
For the KJSEA, we have had 249 learners. And all of them have sat for the paper. We have no absentee, and we thank God for that.
Since this is the first year the JSEA exam are being administered to grade 9 students, the school head teacher said both the school and the candidates had adequately prepared for the exam.
Learners are well prepared since we had CBC in the past. They were very compliant, and even now at CBE, very compliant. They are well prepared by very hardworking teachers.
The students said they had been studying diligently and expressed confidence in performing well and succeeding in.
My name is Peaceway Deranjuguna. To be honest, some I feel anxious, but I feel motivated, and it's okay.
Live. We wish all the candidates the very best as they sit for their exams. Lisa Motinda reporting for EBN TV, Nairobi.
The government has expressed optimism following reports of 0 pregnancy cases among female candidates in Narok North Sub-County as the 2025 exams officially commenced across the country.
Speaking during the launch and the distribution of examination materials in the region, Narok North Deputy County Commissioner Kennedy Mangombe described the development as a positive sign of progress in efforts to curb teenage pregnancies.
Mangombe said security and education officials will remain vigilant throughout the exam period to ensure the protection of learners, especially girls, from gender-based violence and other forms of abuse.
He also assured that candidates with disabilities will be accorded full support to ensure they sit the exams under fair and conducive conditions.
According to the Sub-County Education Office, a total of 12,010 candidates are sitting this year's national exams in Narok North.
Of these, 2349 are Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education KCSE candidates sitting their exams in 24 centers, while 5,391 learners are sitting the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment KPSEA in 136 centers.
Kwa wale ambao wanafanya mitihani wakiwa na ulemavu kadha wa kadha, shirika letu la mitihani limeweza kuangalia wale ambao wako na ulemavu wa macho. Hiyo wanafanya ile mitihani ambayo imeweza kuandikwa katika ile lugha braille. Wale ambao wako na ulemavu ya mili pia wameweza kuangaliwa kiupande wa masaa, na katika shule zao pia wameweza kuhakikishiwa, walimu wameweza kuhakikisha kwamba wanapata vifaa ambavyo vinapaswa kuwezesha kufanya mitihani bila shida. Watoto wote kwa jumla ambao wanatainiwa katika sub county yetu ni 12,010. Hiyo ikiwa imeweza kutawanyika katika kiwango cha KCSE, KJSEA na KPSEA. Kwa upande wa KCSE tuko na watoto au tuko na candidates 2,349 ambao wako katika examination centers 24. Kwa upande wa KPSEA tuko na wanafunzi 5,391 ambao wako katika centers 136. Katika KJSEA tuko na wanafunzi 4,270 ambao wako katika centers 98. Kwa hivyo kwa jumla tuko na watahiniwa 12,010 na centers 160.
Na tunatarajia kwamba kila kitu kitakuwa shwari. Panapokuwa na matatizo, manake kwa kila kitu ambacho kimepangwa kunaweza kuwa na matatizo, pia walimu wanaelewa ya kwamba wanapaswa kuongea na sisi na pia kuongea na NEC ili tupate suluhisho kwa zile shida ambazo zinaweza kutukumba.
The Orange Democratic Movement ODM Party's National Executive Committee has held its first meeting following the death of its long-serving leader, Raila Odinga. During the meeting, the party resolved to continue supporting President William Ruto's administration until the 2027 polls, reaffirming its commitment to political stability and national unity. The committee also formally endorsed Senator Oburu Oginga as the acting party leader, a move seen as a step toward maintaining continuity with ODM leadership structure. In honor of the late Odinga, the party announced plans to hold a special memorial service to celebrate his legacy and decades of contribution to Kenya's democracy and governance.
We commit here in unison that, as we did during the funeral, that we will not be responsible for any breakup in the party or any unnecessary political turbulence that runs counter to Jacom's dream. I beseech the media to avoid the tendency for sensationalism and the incessant hunt for negative news within the party. ODM's biggest problem now will not be which faction is winning against which one, or whether indeed there exist factions within the party. Today, the Central Committee of the party has met and laid a firm foundation of unity upon which we can build on moving forward. Please help us sustain this momentum by not perpetually hyping on perceived divisions. Instead, take time to also see us as a fabric built from diverse material, originating from everywhere across the country, which predictably means that we may not always speak the same language, but we certainly know how to avoid the pitfalls of division that may happen on our path. Finally, we wish to appeal to the national government that the constitutional provision for the funding of political parties is a yawning gap that has seen ODM owed billions in political party remittances. We believe that the best way for the national government to honor the late Raila Odinga is to release the money owed to the party so that our programs can run and the legacy of our leader can remain secure. Indeed, as the foremost Democrat in this country, Raila had fought tirelessly for political party funding as a safeguard against state interference, and it is only fair that his memory be sanctified by the expediting of pending issues for which he sought solutions. This being the first meeting of the committee since the passing of our leader, the top organ has resolved as follows. Number one, that we extend the deepest gratitude to the people and the government of Kenya for the support, outpouring of love and solidarity extended to our leader and his family following his passing. That we endorse Honorable Dr. Oburu Oginga as the new acting party leader and urge the party rank and file to accord him all the necessary support and cooperation to enable him guide the party through this difficult time. That in honor of his legacy as a unifier who brought together people of all shades of views and from diverse social, economic, geographical backgrounds, ODM shall continue on the path of embracing diversity and continue the struggle for equity, justice and peace here at home and beyond our borders. That in line with the wishes and demands of millions of Kenyans whose lives he touched, the party will hold memorial services in many different parts of the country to enable those many admirers interact with his sudden departure.
All right, let's get into the newspapers and the headlines this morning to just understand what is being said and what is not being said now. The Daily Nation has Trump aid freeze triggers HIV crisis. Trump aid freeze triggers HIV crisis. Now, there's a shutdown of the U.S. Agency for International Development, what you all know as USAID, and it has disrupted the healthcare plan, especially when you talk about the HIV fight. Now, U.S. President's USAID funding cuts have significantly impacted Kenya's HIV treatment program, and patients previously receiving 6-month antiretroviral supplies now get fewer drugs, forcing frequent hospital visits and increased costs. Now, viral load testing, once free, now costs up to 3,000 shillings, with decades of HIV progress on the threat of being wiped out. And so just to paint a perspective of just how much we are talking about, under the country's development cooperation strategy of 2020 to 2025, USAID committed to approximately 325 billion shillings. That's equivalent to $2.5 and $2.5 billion in development assistance to Kenya. Of this, nearly 61 billion is disbursed annually, with about 80% directed towards healthcare programs, including the management, treatment, and prevention of HIV through the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. So, with a new government coming into office in the U.S., that is U.S. President Donald Trump, he was sworn into office early this year in January, and immediately after he comes in with his own policies, the directions that he would want his government to take. And it's not just affecting Kenya alone, but most of the African, or I'd say developing countries for that matter. If you're having a healthcare program which is supported, and then, we largely depend on aid. When you're talking about HIV, talk about perhaps immunization for children or any other health plans. They are funded by the U.S. And so the U.S. has withdrawn that funding, and now we find that we are in a very bad situation because we are always dependent on this country. And the former President Uhuru Kenyatta actually commented about this before and said it is about time African countries avoid depending on world-leading countries and actually have a health plan for themselves.
Actually, Cynthia, that takes me to a point or even a place where we've been discussing over Kenya has been borrowing so carelessly, if we need to quote carelessly, because is it yesterday I went through a script whereby it's like Kenya is barred from borrowing further from where they are, and maybe someone said that we borrowing too much and so heavily, but we don't see where we are going. So someone said that it's good that we be barred from borrowing because we borrow too much, but we never see where the money that we borrow goes to. So I think now when it comes to matters health and Trump trying to make a closure or even to stop this aid from coming to the developing countries, that gets me to a point where I'm supposed to cement these points and say that, we are not supposed to be relying on USA or US or even Donald Trump, because this changed immediately. Trump was sworn in this year. And this is to mean, I think, there is a point that maybe, do you think of the population from these bigger countries or developed countries trying to do a kind of depopulation to the developing countries?
I wouldn't feel that way, particularly about that. It's just that, the countries will sit and ask themselves, what exactly are they benefiting from Kenya? Now, that's a very huge question, after all, because you think, it's Kenya, what exactly would you be contributing? But, for them to be able to do this, the U.S. in itself, is suffering through recess in terms of finances, in terms of the economy. Yes, it is a country that does well financially, but at the same time, they also have their own debts that they need to settle. They also have their own programs and projects that they'd want to do. You have a new government coming in of Donald Trump, and he says he's going to streamline the government, appoints people like Elon Musk to office. Eventually, they fell out. But if you're having somebody like Elon Musk coming into office as the head of, sort of streamlining government services, perhaps this is somebody who's not close to this kind of programs of USAID and will struggle to understand how exactly this is going to benefit the US. But at the end of the day, what's the meaning of aid? And at the same time, perhaps it's also a lesson for Kenya and other African countries that we need to now find a way of funding our own healthcare plans instead of depending on the US. Yes, this is Donald Trump. Perhaps the next president will decide to return it, to return the aid back. Then after that, somebody else decides to scrap it off. So we'll always be the pawn in these games.
So I think as African countries, and because we are just developing, we need to have measures like we need to streamline our health systems. I think we'll be able to fight all this well, because as you said, someone else may come in and put it back, another will come in. Actually, that kind of, we don't fully rely on some other people to keep serving us when it comes to issues of health. So I think we generate a lot of money. We are financially able as a country. And if the resources that we have are used carefully and well, I think we can manage ourselves. Because I'm thinking of Donald Trump appointing Elon Musk to that. Have you ever thought of how Elon Musk is rich? And you just talking of, let's talk about how we can help African countries also, or closely Kenyans. As you've asked, how does this help a country like US? And someone appointed there is Elon Musk. How rich that person is?
Yeah, I mean, he's a billionaire, definitely a billionaire. But at the end of the day, it's also, you know, I wouldn't want to fault the US president that is Donald Trump, but they also needs to, you know, initially when they had given this particular direction, you know, it was immediate until there was some talks and some mediation, and then they extended the plan by 9 months. They support not all of it, but some part of it, but at least 9 months. And then 6 months actually, and the 6 months expired in September. And so after September, you know, it's a question of, can we have perhaps new talks and you know, the legislation, the Congress in the US to be able to sit and restructure this to ensure that, you know, yes, we are dependent on them, but at the same time, you know, it's people's lives that we are going to lose in Kenya and in Africa because of just the affordability and the cost of accessing medical services. I'd also love to perhaps link that point as well to the AGOA program. This is, you know, a trade deal that we had signed with the US, and not just Kenya alone, but also developing countries. Not all of them, a few select of the countries. We signed that in 2000. And the deal essentially was to allow us export at least 1,800 projects or products to the US market. And so with a new president coming into place, he didn't review the AGOA initiative. And this initiative, the president spoke about it during the Madaraka Day celebrations and says, you know, he'd love to have more Kenyan exports going to the US under the AGOA project. And yet at the moment, we do not have that in place. And that means that these 1,800 products that go to the US market will now be able to incur tariff, I'd say tariff fees, and so it's going to be much higher than what we have now. So it's not just about USAID, but we also have AGOA. We also saw the tariff wars that US had with China. I mean, it's a new administration that is just trying to implement so much.
And I think the tariff is very high, and when it comes to us exporting goods to or products to US, it's a benefit and an advantage to our country. But now, I think the AGOA deal was taking like 25 years, and I think
ended this year.
It ended this year, and Trump looks a bit, it's like he's not so interested in African countries because this is just about signing, and I would think of it's a country that is it's a mutual benefit. From Kenya we benefit, and from US to us, and us to US we benefit mutually. And now looking at that's the same thing as you talking of US aid being stopped. Is a point of these big people thinking of the benefit we get from these small countries or developing countries is very minimal, so we don't have to rely on them. So I think having like 1,800 products from our country to US, I think is a very big loss to us. And for someone like Donald Trump, I think you need to sit down and we can negotiate and see how the AGOA treaty or agreement goes, and maybe we get back to the same with maybe cheaper tariffs or smaller tariffs.
And so, you know, just to also perhaps support your point that US President Donald Trump, may come off as somebody who's not really interested in what happens in Africa. And, this is one of the richest continents. European countries are literally fighting for African spaces and African continents. In the East, in the West, in Asia, they are fighting to get investors, to get some sort of investment in Africa. And so, yes, the US may not see it that way, but is it about time that we turn our attention perhaps to a different direction? If it's not working in US, we can go to the Middle East. I mean, we're having like Qatar, we're having Saudi Arabia. These are nations that we've seen them open to having treaties and having trade deals with African countries. We already have, trade deals with China. I mean, they built us the SGR, they built the expressway. We are still, incurring those particular, charges. We are talking about the Rironi Mau Summit Road, which, according to the government, still will be constructed under the China Bridge Corporation. So, if it's not working the US way, I believe instead of sort of sitting and trying to ask for aid here, we can try to knock doors in other places, and I'm sure perhaps something may come of it. But we hope that Donald Trump will have a change of heart and perhaps, have more interest in Africa.
And again, we can desperately beg, and these people will just run us so poor.
We hope not, we hope not. Now, I'd love to link, just before we get to your newspaper, with what happened, or what is happening in Cameroon. And, I'll speak of this because it's an African country, and we were just speaking off air with Jeff here and talking about just African country and the leadership problem that we have, and how unattractive it is to any investor coming from, other continents. Now, Biya declared vote winner in opposition, as opposition reports gunfire. That is concerning the Cameroon elections, where President Paul Biya, the world's oldest serving president, who, by the way, is 92 years, secured a new term in office, and get this, of 7 years. So if he serves that to full term, as he'll be leaving office, he will be 99 years of age. Now, this sparked uproar in Cameroon, which is reported that a few people have been shot dead. Now, he won with 53.66% compared to his challenger at 35.19%. And there was no immediate comment on the results from the government, which has rejected opposition accusation of irregularities. After the results were announced, one of the main contender in the election, called Chiroma Bakari, wrote on Facebook that 2 people were killed after shots were fired at civilians outside his home in northern city of Garoua. Now, 92 years of age, elected as president, serving his 8th term in office, and the term goes for 7 years. Wow, I empathize with the young people of that country, because we say the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. But if you're having a 99-year-old president, if he serves his full term, what time or what opportunity does a youth get to get into this office? And it's really a sad state of affairs what is happening in Cameroon at the moment.
Cynthia, I'm trying to look at the comparison of the winning and the voting system, because I would think of maybe his competitor is a bit younger than Biya, who is 92 years of age. Biya won by 53.66. And his next person, his competitor, was at 31.89. Are you looking at the difference? And what I'm trying to figure out is Biya is 92 years of age, and maybe the competitor is a bit younger than him. And I'm trying to look at what a 92-year-old person is capable of doing. And you've said that young people are the leaders of tomorrow. I normally say they are leaders from today. Today is tomorrow, or future starts immediately. It actually starts right now. And if we keep on getting, and some of the things that make me get surprised a bit is, what are the things that you keep looking at to make sure that you return someone into seat, such an old person? And if this is not challenged because we've seen the challenges that is still going on. We've seen 2 people already dead. We've seen protests already staged for the Cameroon's be a victory, presidential victory. And this is to mean that people are not pleased with what is happening. You see that they are coming out to contest or even to go against the will or even what maybe the voting bodies and systems did. I think this is to mean that generally it's something that does not please people of the same place. And again, I want to do a very small comparison. We're looking at Uganda again, and 15th of January, we're voting for Museveni again, and that will be the last time that will be voted.
That's what he said. Yeah.
And this is still Africa, 82. Museveni is 82, Biya is 92, and we're still transitioning to Tanzania, although Tanzania, Suluhu Hassan is a bit younger, but we are looking at the trends where power and politics in Africa is like, you don't want to retire.
Yeah, it's like a do or die.
Yeah. And now I'm wondering, my concern has been, you working, because maybe a politician, you have to know that you're a politician as young as 20 years of age. That is when you join politics, even if not actively. And at the age of 92, you're still actively involved in politics. When do you eat the small amount of money that you've been amassing?
Retire in peace.
When will you retire in peace?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at this, it makes you appreciate Kenya's democracy. And the fact that, a president would willingly and openly serve, whether it's 2 terms or 1 term, and decide to hand over the mantle to the next person. And we cannot, as a country, underestimate the sort of democracy that we have. And, these trends, as you've said, power in politics in Africa is sort of like a do and die. In developed countries, it is not.
It is not.
I'll take an example of UK. We've seen prime ministers literally resign from office if a decision is made that is very costly, whether with the economy, whether with the country's politics, whether with the country's social status, they would resign. Liz Truss, for example, the former UK Prime Minister, resigned, and she hadn't even served in office for quite long. And she's not the first. It happens a lot. And so we as Africa need to understand that we don't live and breathe politics. It needs to get to a point where, yes, let the leaders do what they want to do, and you just watch. But when you're given an opportunity to express your democratic vote, and you felt that you did not agree with what they did, then you've got that option of electing somebody different. And so perhaps that's one of the things that Raila Odinga the late was really fighting for Kenya, and it worked. And we saw him speak about this as well for other African countries. I'm not saying all African countries are under that quote-unquote dictatorial rule or sort of leadership, but there are a number, and just few of them actually enjoy the democracy that Kenya enjoys, and we don't take it for granted, absolutely not.
Yes, and I think when it comes to Africa and politics, maybe presidential politics, I think it is veins and blood. Without, you can't walk, you can't go, there's nothing you can do. So I think, and there is something we call, is it cognitive ability? The mental ability of a person.
Yes.
What are some of the losses that we get as a country, Cynthia, when you try to re-elect? And this is the 8th time that we're seeing Biya, Cameroonian president,
being elected,
being elected. And most probably, because I don't know the systems and the lie that they use to people, that they lure them and they get back to seats. Now, what is the loss that a country can get to electing someone until the age of 92 and 99?
I mean, number one, there are no fresh ideas this person is bringing in. You might find they just want to push same old mantra. If you have got a different person coming in, they come in with a different perspective, a different way of how to build the economy. I'm even curious to just understand, how Cameroon is doing economically, and just is it a powerhouse in terms of the economy in Africa? Can we talk about political instability as well right now? How long will the protests take? And will the president-elect now serve his seven years in office peacefully, or are we going to see a recurring protest more often than not? I mean, it needs to get to a point that with this situation, it scares off investors because they're really not sure, should I continue investing or something's going to go wrong? And so it just draws back the gains, really, in terms of development in the country, in terms of economic powerhouse in the country, even social status for that matter, because, you're just never sure about tomorrow, you're never really sure about what happens next. And so it's quite sad, really, in terms of just toying with the minds of people. And as you've said, does it get to a point where somebody's been re-elected so long enough or has held a position so long enough in office that you feel, perhaps this is just the person, there can never be another leader to lead this country? Because if he got into office in 1982, somebody was born perhaps in 1990, found him in office, has only known him as president in office. And so it also, perhaps goes in the way that I don't know any other leader. I don't know if any other leader can perform in this position. I don't want to try any other leader. I'm comfortable with whoever is in that position. So,
So I trust, Cynthia, this is great politically and last. And someone who is 92 years of age will be naturally
quite tired,
is very tired, and I think he'll also be having health complications every day. So I want to ask, how will this person perform for the 7 years? And again, Cynthia, I'm trying to do a comparison where this person looks at a whole country. Maybe Cameroon is well populated, looking at everyone around Cameroon, do you think that there's none who can perform very closely near Biya or above Biya?
They have not been given an opportunity. I mean, a country with 29 million Cameroonians, no one else has been given an opportunity, really.
That's very bad. Yeah. That's very bad. And when we were young, there are these small bottle gums that we used to have, then they are draped with a Cameroonian, the small, those ball gums where you could paste on your ends, so that you just are giving respect to Cameroon. And to everywhere. And now this is the Cameroon that we used to feel, I want to be a Cameroonian. You're looking at the players, you think, Cameroon is a very good country. But
I'm actually looking at just a comparison between Cameroon and Kenya. The gross domestic product, that is GDP for Cameroon, is at $51.3 billion US dollars. Kenya is at 124 billion, so we are literally, I believe, double their GDP. Their debt, the government debt, is lower than ours at $21.9 billion. Ours is at $81.7 billion. That means essentially they should be performing better because they've got a lower debt. But I think what stands out for me is that this is a country with a population of 29.1 million. We're at 56.4 million at this particular point. So they've got lower population, lower debt. We've got a higher population, a higher debt. Our GDP is higher, theirs is lower. But if this is it's an economy that is managed well, it needs to translate to the fact that you're less. That means essentially your economy should be a bit more sprouting than ours. But we will just be keeping our eyes and ears in Cameroon to take stock of what happens.
So I think for our audience and the viewers, I think now this time around, as I always keep on saying, that you have to vote very well, very wisely, and we have to challenge these old leaders that are coming in, because as they said, they have got no any new idea that is coming in from them. And again, if someone new comes in, I think they'll bring a new idea and they won't break what they found. They keep on adding and keep on developing the same thing. Transitioning to the Standard Kenya's Board newspaper, we have a very interesting title here and an explaining statement whereby Standard is trying to warn or even to stop some CSS from being fully involved in politics, and this is termed as abuse of office, where cabinet secretaries have been traversing the country in full campaign mode, using public resources and state platforms to drum up support for UDA candidates in the ongoing by-election campaigns and President Ruto's 2027 second-term bid. The campaigns have drawn senior public servants, including those that hold offices that the Constitution determines to be purely political. Now LSK wants a condemnation to bar them from active politics, arguing that such behavior is partisan a case of misuse of office, making them unfit to serve all Kenyans. And Cindy, I'm looking at CS Duale for health. I'm looking at Mukomen Interior for CS. Yeah, CS for Interior. I'm looking at Musalia Mudavadi. He is the Prime Cabinet Secretary. And I'm looking at Douglas Kanja, Inspector of Inspector General of Police. Yeah. And Cynthia, there is a time, I don't remember very well, but I remember there was a backlash for Douglas Kanja, I think this year, where he went to
a rally.
A rally.
It was this year. with President William
Ruto.
Yeah.
And drumming up support for President William Ruto, and he's not a politician.
True.
We're looking at the same Aden Duale is so fully engaged in his support for President William Ruto, Murkomen and Musalia Mudavadi, the same thing. And Cindy, I think CS is just appointed. He's not a political leader. He's not supposed to campaign. He's not supposed to show support for any political campaigner.
Yeah, and there's a reason why any cabinet secretary who's appointed into office need to forfeit any position they hold in any political party.
Yeah. But we're looking at the ones we have here. So Cindy, I think this is also being politically biased and partisan. And the same thing, we are coming from Cameroon, now we are back to our country, where we're looking, you have a position as a CS, and you still feel that, because I don't think if you're a CS and you're supporting me as a political aspirant, I don't think whether you support me just barely, there is something that I have to give you. So as I mentioned about the last and greed for politically, I think this is one of it, whereby these people will never feel satisfied or even contented with what they're getting. And a CS gets a lot of money, a big salary, plus all allowances. So I don't know, what's your take, Cynthia, for our CSs joining politics so actively?
I mean, you know, we've had this conversation quite often, because our CS position, essentially, they're supposed to be technocrats rather than politicians, despite the fact that it's actually politicians who occupy those positions quite a lot. But remember, this is they constitute the highest decision-making organ in the country, and that is the executive. And so this particular executive needs people that are willing to even correct mistakes that may be made by their own government, irrespective of the political aspect of it. And so with the by-elections that are coming up, you know, obviously we've talked about how there'll be a very huge test on just how UDA has the grip in some of these regions, the popularity of UDA, the popularity of DCP, popularity of perhaps ODM or any other parties. And so when you're having now the CSs, for instance, Musalia Mudavadi, I will tell you the number of times that I've seen him camp in Kakamega County, quite literally, ahead of the Malava by-elections. And what does this mean? It could be like a direct order from above. You need to ensure that UDA actually clinches this seat in Malava. And so he's camped in Malava quite a number of times. And, you know, he's always been pushing for the people to elect a candidate that they would want. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I've said that, yes, but you need to stay in government. Don't leave government. Now, if you look at the case of Douglas Kanja, I mean, what a shocker that was. And I believe the criticism may have gotten to him because we've not seen him do that again. But he attended a rally with the President William Ruto and was actually given an opportunity to speak and address the gathering. And, you know, politics is about what we see. Communication is also about what we see. So what was that we saw? And what does this mean as well when you're having a high-ranking security official in the position of the Inspector General of Police addressing a crowd side by side by the President? I mean, the optics really just tell the story. With Kipchumba Murkomen and Aden Duale, I don't think I would expect any otherwise. I would not expect any otherwise. These are people we know who are hardcore politicians, and politicking is in their nature. And I don't think they can quite avoid it.
Let them just move with it, provided that they work. But I don't think whether you can mix all these two and you work for Kenyans as you expected. Then for Kanja, I think you should have addressed issues of security around that region. Apart from drumming support for President Lulu. Actually, even if he supports him, that's something that should be put under and just show us how security is and how it's concerned with security issues around that region and Kenya as well. Because this came maybe after the departed Prime Minister stopped the demonstration of war around. So it was some times after that. And now we're coming again, we've seen Musalia here and we're looking at Musalia again. There are people who are trapped in Russia, Cynthia, from Kenya.
Yes.
They are fighting in Russia. And I always compare or look at a picture whereby we are taking our people from here. They are not fully trained, Cynthia. They are not empowered to go and fight for a bigger country like Russia. We're living issues here. Actually, in Kajiado yesterday I think they were chaos. And we don't settle our small issues around here, but we can afford to take people not fully trained to fight for Russia. And I just want to read something very small. That's very, I saw it humorous because this is Musalia Mudavadi. Yes, our citizens have been lured in to the Russian war against Ukraine, and this is Mudavadi.
The Prime
Cabinet Secretary. He's saying the government has acknowledged these newspapers' revelations, saying it is working with Russian authorities to trace citizens lured into war front and enable them reach Kenya's mission in Moscow to help to travel back home. Actually, they are reading this from the Standard newspaper.
You know, one thing about government is that they don't communicate and they don't communicate properly. If the expose had not been done by the media, would they have acknowledged that we have something brewing in the country? Most often than not is that an expose is done and then now the government is quick to damage control. Yes, we are aware, we are working, etc., etc. But in this case, and if you look at the details that have emerged from it, you know, you are unwillingly signed into a military of a different nation, of a Russian nation, without your knowledge. You know, you leave Kenya, you think, oh, I'm going to Russia to work in a hotel or in a hospital. You get to the airport, they give you documents which are in Russian, you're told to sign. They take away your passports, they take away your phones, they take away your return flights. And all of a sudden you find yourself in a military camp. That is false pretense of the highest order, and that's a crime.
Yeah, it is.
And I believe even within the international laws, that should not be happening. Because, you know, these people, you know, when you're fighting a war, I'll go a little bit into, I'd say, the Greek way. If you're fighting a war, you need to fight a war that means something to you. What does it mean for a Kenyan fighting a Russian Ukraine war?
You're not coming back unless you
so DCI officers need to move with speed to curb these recruitment agencies, that just as they would move with speed to arrest people who are tweeting online about stuff and Facebook writing and posting things about people. They need to move with that kind of speed and tame this particular bad behavior by recruitment agencies. And of course, you know, we really empathize with the families because if you look at the Standards newspaper yesterday, 5 Kenyans are missing. Their whereabouts are unknown. We are having some who are back in the country, but they are very much injured. Even the money that they were to be paid off, the recruitment agencies withdrew the money. I mean, you're being forcefully signed into the military, at the same time somebody is stealing your money as well. So we can't work like that.
This is being misused, and I think that's a kind of slavery from this country, and such a time we don't expect such to be taking place. And I think Musalia Mudavadi should be very serious when it comes to these matters, because I think
he's the CS for Foreign Affairs as well.
So I don't think whether it's just suppose this revelation was not done by the Standards. These people, I think addition of people from the recruiting should still be taking place, and our people are just being at every day around that place. And I think simply because of time, there is something that we can't leave until we handle it, maybe within 2 minutes. And, I also saw something very interesting, and 29th of October, this is tomorrow. Tanzania is deciding. Tanzania decides who will be their next president. And the incumbent is Samia Suluhu, and he's the solution for Tanzanian people. But very funny, as I've always been saying, and when some few weeks ago, it was IBC voter registration process that kicked off. And I think it's also ongoing.
It's a continuous voting.
And now I overheard a young person say they're not voting because they think voting already has taken place, and it is only that the president, the victor, is not just declared and announced. So I'm reading something from the Standard. Why key observers are missing in Dar polls, and there are no indications the European Union or Commonwealth Observer Group will participate in the exercise. To some, the result is already decided, and Tanzanians will merely ratify President Samia. That's the statement I just wanted to read as we exit.
Yeah, and concerns have been raised by observers, observing agencies, election observers, human rights groups, that this may just be merely a formality for Tanzania in the elections that they will be held tomorrow. Major opponents in the elections, like Tundu Lissu, the opposition figure, are currently sitting in prison. What Samia,
he was released.
He was released, but said he wouldn't go home because he's scared of his safety. So just because of that aspect of I'm scared of my safety, so I'm not going to go out because this is the safest place for me to be in, and that's prison. She'll tell you a lot. And so the incumbent, Samia Suluhu, is running against persons who would not necessarily tilt the elections to their favor. And so, I mean, it raises serious questions about Tanzania's democracy as well. As we speak, we've seen allegations of, you know, some of the social media apps which have been banned in Tanzania. No one can access them other than the president herself. And so if you look at this and the reports and the details that are coming out of Tanzania, Amnesty International as well published a report about the state of this particular race and called the Samia Suluhu out for the dictatorial type of leadership and for extrajudicial killings and abuse of human rights, abuse of office. And so this is just a worrying state that, you know, we are very close to Tanzania. We do businesses together. You know, you can, if you're somewhere within the sides of Kajiado as you're heading over to Namanga, you can literally walk to Tanzania. And so within East Africa, there seems to be a culture that is creeping up of leaders getting greedy about positions and of leaders who are now condoning extrajudicial killings, condoning harassment of even journalists, condoning harassment of their political opponents, and that's not what politics is about. And, you know, Raila Odinga was a very key example of we can compete against each other, but we are not enemies. Somehow we can agree on some things. And so this culture is slowly creeping up within East Africa, and it is a worrying culture because if that is the way, then what prevents influence for other East African countries as well? And so
let's find out.
So Tanzania heads to the polls tomorrow, October 29th. There's little hope for, if you listen to some of the people there who are even scared to speak, but there's little hope in terms of perhaps a change of leadership, and so it is expected that Samia Suluhu will be president-elect.
And Samia, I think yesterday, but when he said, I think he was talking to his young people, young generation from Tanzania. He said that there should never be encouraged or pushed by another person to make sure that they erode the peace that has been prevailing all along Tanzania. But contrary to what she said, a lot of people, when you go to Facebook and to social media, although sometimes we may not build so much on what we find on social media, but sometimes it turns out to be very true because we are evolving so quickly. And as early as yesterday, I saw some people talking of protests even before the election is done tomorrow, 29th.
All right, we hope indeed peace will prevail. It will be sad for it to go any other way, but we will be keeping our eyes and ears in Tanzania to see what exactly happens. So allow us to wrap it up at this particular point, but your faith is coming up at the top of the hour.
And you had not known, but now you know. This is Morning Life, JKS.
I'm Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a wonderful morning.